Hi everyone, I'm Emmy.
And I'm Andy.
And this is
My Little Menty Bee. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are solely those of the hosts and are not representative of any of their affiliates.
Listener discretion is advised. This podcast episode includes references to fat-phobic language, body dysmorphia, eating disorders, and child abuse. Enjoy this episode of My Little Menty Bee.
So we're going to start this one off with a little wellness check. So Emily, wellness check.
I am well-ish.
Yeah?
Yeah, we're trying to move, and we're starting this podcast, and
So we're medium well.
yeah, medium rare.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, wellness check.
I am weller than I was earlier this week when I got pink eye.
Mm-hmm.
Dun, dun, dun. Now, disclaimer, I work with small children, so I didn't give it to myself. But yeah,
Can you give it to yourself?
Yeah. Everybody knows how you get pink eye, so.
I don't know. No.
Look it up.
No, I think
Anyway, I mean, these are sensitive topics.
Okay, so
But
anyway,
I'm weller than I was. Actually, you know what? That's a lie. I don't want to go to work tomorrow, so I'm also
you never want to
medium
go to
rare.
work tomorrow.
But regardless,
Neither do I.
medium well.
Medium well, I like that. So what did I say?
You said you were medium rare.
Medium rare, and you're medium well.
Yeah, I'm medium well.
Oh, well.
So, all right. Let's get into it.
All right.
Blippy stays there. I'm going to crank her up.
Okay.
Ready?
Get in, Blip. We're going to fat school. Okay.
This is our mascot, Blippy. In case anybody's wondering, we got Blippy at an antique mall, and there's really no backstory to her other than I liked her and she needed to come home with me. So
She spoke to you.
Yeah,
through
she did.
telekinesis.
Yep, and so she is our mascot. So welcome,
Meet
Blippy.
Blip.
Blippy. Okay, so last episode, our very first episode, was about fat camp.
Yes.
And as a reminder, we went to 2 fat camps.
Camp
and we
Shane
mentioned,
and Camp Pocono Trails.
We mentioned on last week's episode that, or our last episode, I don't know when it's going to air.
Yeah.
But that Em actually went to a residential program that was for weight loss, so a fat school.
It was so good.
And we really were into like niche markets for these camps.
Yeah.
So I read a couple of articles and you watched a couple of videos.
I did.
And we're going to kind of stick with the same way we were doing it before. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the first article I read.
Off we go.
Which kind of ties things nicely together. You know, it is a very unique experience that we went to fat camp and then you went to fat school. But there were other people who were in this kind of pipeline.
Oh my God. And recently I found out that it's all the same. We're all the same. If you end up at one of them, we've been to all of them.
Yeah. So this particular article that I read was from the New York Times. It was written in 2005.
Okay.
And it followed one camper who went to Camp Shane. And her name was Alexis Mason. So she was 12 years old. She was only 133 pounds. But she, felt like she'd been teased, and so it was a very similar experience to where it's like the parents are desperate. They put them on every single diet. Nothing's working, but, kids' weight fluctuates, but parents are also...
All of our weight fluctuates. I wish they would just teach us that when we were kids.
So,
because even as an adult, you're like...
Watching your kid be teased can be hard. But, like, one quote that I pulled from this article is that they wrote, "Everyone at Camp Shane was overweight, yet people were still being made fun of about their weight." So that was a really nice, validating quote because, like you said, there are cool people at fat camp and there are uncool people at fat camp.
Cool fat kids and pretty fat kids. We were neither the cool or the pretty fat kids. We were the weird uggos.
Yeah, and so as a reminder, Camp Shane's structure was 1,500 calories a day, 3 to 4 hours of physical activity a day, and then weekly weigh-ins. And the same thing.
Thank you.
At Camp Pocono Trails. And, exercise and food were used as punishment and rewards there as well.
And then you were talking about Camp Shane again, yeah?
Yeah.
Sorry, I got distracted. I was like, it was a
your
cute
lovely
boy.
assistant.
Yeah.
So a couple of things that I pulled from this article, too, that were really validating from our last conversation is that they did bring in, quotes from critics who said that, people that were running these camps were not they did not have the credentials to do this.
No.
They mentioned that the children often had serious emotional baggage, and so they said, yeah, a lot of the kids were very messed up and had experienced significant trauma within their homes, whether it was the death of a parent or the like, and they could trace their weight gain back to that. And a big responsibility for the camp counselors too. So
And the camp counselors never had experience with children for real either. There's not a lot of it's like one of those jobs that you go on and you find and you're like, I need no experience whatsoever and it pays me this much, sign me up.
Well, I'll get into it with my later article, but they talked about how these camps and these residential programs, anything in the troubled teen industry, there was no empirical evidence to support these claims that they were making. It was all anecdotal and testimonial. So it's people who are, probably friends of like Tony Sparber or, who's the other fucking dude?
David Ettenberg.
Thank you. The one that I read about. Who are going on there and saying it changed my kid's life. And that's enough for a desperate parent to go into a situation. But there was not enough, finances and time. Well, there was time, but people didn't want to because these are all for profit.
Absolutely.
They wanted to make the money, and so they didn't do any actual research to learn about the outcomes. There was very minimal research about kind of like what the impact is at the end, but they would only follow them for, 10 months.
Right.
Okay, so here we go. We're going to get into...
I'm so excited to talk to you.
Wellspring Academy.
Wellspring Academy.
No ASMR, but I'm going to whisper it.
Wellspring Academy. It's fucking a scary bitch.
Yeah, let's get into some ghost stories about Wellspring Academy. Okay, Wellspring Academy is unique from fat camps because it was the first weight loss program, school, residential program situation.
We were there for a long, long time.
That was allegedly research-based and therapeutic. Okay?
Tomato, but I don't feel very... Yeah, tomato.
Tomato.
Yeah.
So there were like 2 camps that you could do that were under the Wellspring umbrella, and then there was the original school, which is where you attended, and then another school.
Yeah, in like North Carolina.
We're going to see this in the cut, but my head just twitched again. I don't know what that's about. Anyway, it's because I'm so uptight.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Okay. So campers at Wellspring Camp and at school. I'm going to quote this article. This is the New York Times article.
Quote it.
Campers set goals and monitor themselves. Techniques that are components of behavior modification. One of the most widely accepted approaches to long-term weight loss success.
Allegedly.
So, quote, each camper is responsible for her own eating and exercise habits. At meal, for example, campers get controlled foods.
Yeah,
like measured entrees and desserts.
And they're on prison trays.
And uncontrolled foods, berries, melon, and fat-free soups. They can eat as much of the uncontrolled foods as they want, but they have to jot down the calories and fat grams in a journal with the goal of staying under 20 grams of fat and about 1,200 calories a day. In addition, you were expected to wear a pedometer, and you had to
forgot about the pedo, dude.
Yeah, you had to hit 10,000 steps a day.
I never, that thing was like always running out of battery. And like, I felt like, people would wear the pedo, right? And we'd be standing, because like, we'd be just standing in the living room, and we would just be like, yeah. Because like, but it's just like, what an interesting standard to hold kids to. And because we were all insane about, like, there were a lot of people who were like insane about it. You could tell that was like, they were really focused. And then there were some of us who was like, I ain't doing shit.
Well, it's so ridiculous. We get back into, and one of the articles that I read just talked about like child development and, the theory of like child and environment, and how each individual child deserves an individual approach to their own care. And then you come here and there's a one-size-fits-all approach, and you're giving children 1,200 calories a day, some of whom who are coming in eating 5,500 calories a day. You're cutting them off completely. That induces withdrawal. You can end up being like okay, I can't say this for sure, but I know that like in cults, like food deprivation induces psychosis. So I would imagine that in a place like this, if you are being deprived of food and not like a gradual kind of reduction, if that's your goal, you know, which the articles too talked about, like, did these children consent to this? Like, who's,
I didn't.
yeah, like whose
I remember
idea
signing
is this?
my rights away when I got taken there, and I remember like signing this piece of paper, and Mom, I was like, what am I doing? And she was like, well, I was 17, and she was like, so you need to sign this piece of paper, and I signed it, and my phone got taken away, my access to the outside world got taken away. They started rifling through my shit, like. And that was like the moment where I realized I was like, like I'm like, she's leaving and I'm staying.
How long did you stay for?
It's foggy, I can't remember. So like you said, like the psychosis part, like there are lots of pockets of time
I would say
at
that's
school
probably
that
more
are missing.
dissociation. I don't think you were
There's a
experiencing.
few other kids who are, I mean, maybe dissociation, probably all of it, right? Because they were also, I forgot until recently that they were also giving us medication. They were allowed, they had people on staff who were allowed to prescribe you medication, and a lot of us came out like on an interesting cocktail
Yeah.
of meds that like when we got home had to be fixed.
Yeah. Well, these were unique spaces. They were considered therapeutic, but they were not necessarily run by qualified people. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about Wellspring. So,
Take it back to the beginning.
30 minutes outside of Fresno, California, and the raisin capital of the world. I remember visiting you and being really like mystified by all of the fields and
I know. It was
the
just
raisins.
raisins, fields, and it was beautiful to actually like be there. It was
But interestingly enough, a lot of these residential troubled teen, because the troubled teen industry is very vast. So oftentimes it's more talked about like behavioral issues, but in many cases, families did believe that their child's eating habits was behavioral, and so this would, in my opinion, be considered part of the troubled teen industry.
Right.
And in the article I was reading, they were talking about how a lot of these residential programs were like therapeutic residential programs were placed in areas in the West because they were hidden, tucked away in these kinds of rural areas where they were not regulated a whole lot.
like
the
high security prisons in
Just
the
wait.
middle and
Just wait.
cults. High security prisons and cults, they always are in the middle of nowhere because guess what? You can't run.
Okay. Yeah. Just wait.
Can't run. It's too far.
Okay. So
it's
I don't
dark.
think there's anything from the Wikipedia
You don't know where you're going. I could go on and on. The trauma.
Okay. So I read a second article from
2 articles.
I read several articles.
I love it.
I mean, there's one where I geek out because it's about more child development and less so much about like the actual specific. Why was that hard to say?
Specific
Parts
Specific.
of But anyway, I digress. This particular article, because there's not a lot on Wellspring either.
No.
But the article that I'm geeking out on has kind of explanations as to why. So this article was called Fat School. It was written in 2008 by the Washington Post.
Ooh, Post.
They referenced Wellspring as one of it was a test. Like the guy.
Wellspring was a test?
Yes.
So, it makes sense because that test did not pass.
So Ryan Craig is the owner and founder of Wellspring Academy, and he is a former investment banker. Once again, another skinny white man who's profiting off of fat kids.
How's that money taste, Ryan?
The mentally ill. Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
So sounds like everything all the time.
Everything all of the time.
Yeah. So, former investment banker, he solicited $6.5 million from a for-profit behavioral health company called Aspen Education to test his approach. Okay? And
Academy of the Sierras.
Correct. So, Wellspring opened in 2004 in a, quote, shuttered mental hospital outside of Fresno, California.
Dude, it makes sense.
A shuttered mental hospital?
Dude, it looked like a mental hospital.
Remember, it did.
It looked, and everything looked like a mental hospital. And I remember this one day very specifically, a hairstylist came in and we all got haircuts. And we were lined.
Did you only get to shower once a week? Or is that...
No, we had a shower room in our suite, so I was in a suite with two other girls.
Did you know anybody who got sent away to, like, the next step up?
Oh, like you mean in the program?
Like, there was a place, if you got expelled from Wellspring, that you would go to that was like a wilderness program.
Solo.
Okay, yeah. Well, over there they only showered once a week. I read an article about it.
Interesting.
So anyway, I digress. Somebody came to
Oh,
your
you
hair.
know what? I think that was like the summer portion, and we showered, yeah, like once the whole time we were there, which was gross thinking about it because we were like teenagers, and that's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Well,
in the
interesting.
California sun.
Yeah.
But yeah, one kid in one of the articles I was reading got caught smoking. I was like, they took away every single vice.
Everything that we had, and
Cut you all off. Yeah, involuntarily.
Well, go back to the facility. I just remember that we were all sitting in this like fluorescent lit hallway, and it was like white brick, you know, the painted white brick. And we're all sitting there waiting, and they'd like you would get your like name called, and then you would just like sit in this chair, and somebody would butcher your hair, and then it was
America's Next Top Model.
Yeah, man, it was weird, but like yeah, you could like opt to have your hair cut, but like obviously you need a haircut every once in a while. And it just kind of felt, it felt like a mental hospital where they like bring in the people and they shave your head and then they send you back out. That's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah.
I have like little flashbacks here and there.
I visited you just the once.
Yep.
And the reason why I asked how long you stayed is because, and I can't remember if it's...
I think I stayed for almost an entire year.
So... Hold on.
Because Mom took me from, and I love you, Mom, and I know you didn't mean to, but she took me from a mental facility in Texas and to detox off of a bunch of medications that I was taking for behavioral issues. The medications were a very intense cocktail that created a lot of manic blackouts, and so...
Yeah, you were probably... I mean, that might be medication-induced psychosis.
I gained a lot of weight in the detox program down in Texas. It was at a clinic called Menninger, and... Mom picked me up, noticed the significant weight gain, and then I got to come home for like a week, and she said, we're going to take you to school early so you could do some camping excursions with your classmates. And I said, wait, what are you talking about? And she goes, you're going to boarding school in California.
And yeah, I genuinely do not remember how I learned that you were going. You just had been gone for quite some time.
And 30 days, so I was gone for a month, detoxing.
And, you know... There were reasons, like you were so dysregulated that, you know, my safety and Mom's safety was sometimes in question, but...
I'm so sorry.
Is that an apology to the microphone?
Yeah, because I just bumped it, which...
But I also know that you apologize us. You call us in the middle of the night sometimes to apologize. But, you know...
It was a hot mess.
Behavior, like we said in our last episode, is communication. And I think... there's just been a lot of shifts in the mental health industry, but places like these were really advertised to desperate parents as a solution, as, you know, the solution. And so...
That's how all cults get started, as a very persuasive...
just wait.
...person just saying, come with me and you'll see it's a world of pure hell.
Okay, but interestingly enough, so the stay, I think it's 4-month minimum at Wellspring, but you can stay, you know.
You could stay forever.
I think. I don't really know. They could only have 50.
There was a college.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, on campus.
Yeah, only 50 students were there. And
Dang, it felt like more.
1 year at Wellspring was more expensive than 1 whole year at Harvard. And desperate parents were taking out second mortgages, draining their college funds, and taking on substantial credit card debt because, and I quote, they said, "It will bankrupt us to do this, but we're looking at this or his life." And I think there are times when if your health is really, if you're experiencing a lot of really negative health outcomes, it makes sense that
you can be sold into some
pretty intense shit if
Yeah.
you're desperate.
Yeah, so a lot of
That's what
families
they prey
went
on,
to
desperation.
desperate measures, but there were varied levels of success. And this particular article talked about how there were 2 students that they reference, and we will be talking to some former students, some of your friends.
Yes,
We're working on that. We don't know when that's going to be happening, but we.
And thank you all. Shout out to my Wellspring Survivors group for all of your help. You've jogged a lot of memories, and I'm really excited to do more work with you guys and deep dive into our trauma bond. And it's people from all over the world. We all said this in the group chat, and I think that this is like, some of it was really bad, some of it was good, but like at the end of the day we all have each other, which is really neat because not a lot of people can say that they have these experiences together. And we can like, talk about the good, bad, and the ugly. There's jokes going on in that group chat. There's people like remembering things. There's some trauma sharing and like, but it's all I feel like we all have ended up in a more positive place, right?
It is such
Which
a
is
unique
nice.
experience. Not a lot of people. I mean, this is especially Wellspring was a very small community, 50 kids at a time. But even still, with having gone to Fat Camp, a lot of my friends had gone to camp. But when I would talk about how I just don't like camp because we were being, put through drills and, food was being restricted and we were having crises, and some of the points that we didn't bring out in our last episode, but as I was listening to it, I was like, oh my gosh, the parallels between heavyweights and Camp Shane and Camp Pocono Trails are hysterical.
There's the scene where they're like, they're all doing this slide on those mats, and the kids are falling, and they're like scrambling, and the teacher's just like, we're building a new body. That's how I felt in like calisthenics.
Yeah. Oh my God, the calisthenics. We all know how I feel about calisthenics.
We hate it.
Yeah, but the European counselors, like obviously the counselors in heavyweights were German, and we also had just one nurse, and she was responsible for over 500 students.
And you could tell all the nurses at these schools like seem to have some empathy. They're just like, and I know a lot of we will also be talking to a few staff members, and these staff members were some of the kids' most favorite because they saw what was going on around them, and like they both have said that this was like the best job they ever had. They loved us. These were like people that we knew we could rely on, and they spoke up, which the things that they didn't quite agree with, which made them a lot of enemies, in that group, which sucked. But like, thanks for having our backs, guys.
So, it's they were the only safe people there, really, was that one nurse. And, but yeah, varied levels of success at these particular places. This article referenced 2 former students, and one was able to lose a substantial amount of weight and keep it off. So in 2004, when he originally attended, he weighed 558 pounds, and in 2008, so 4 years later, he weighed 278.
Oh my God, congratulations,
a good amount of time,
brother.
But another student that they talked to had lost 167 pounds and then another 30 after leaving, but very shortly, less than a year, gained back 260.
I'm going to tell you what, the yo-yoing that be happening is just like, that's how we all end up. It's another way, it's like the prison system. You get out, right? And then you are on parole, and then you break parole, and then you get sent back.
Well,
it's
so
a cycle.
This last article that I read, which was from the website on for Breaking Code Silence, which is a wonderful organization that provides a lot of resources and support to children who have been through the troubled teen industry.
Because nobody believes you.
And there's a whole section for academic articles and research, and unfortunately it's not really that like relevant to now. Like they're from 2009, but I think that this is a wonderful organization and would highly recommend donating to them. And so I found a really great article on just like the rights of children, and they talked in this, and this article is just very validating to some of the stuff that we were saying last time, which is that the yo-yoing is a lot to do with the fact that the problem is the child and the environment.
Absolutely.
Not the child. So,
thank you.
And like, CBT is the primary therapeutic intervention that was used at Wellspring.
Yeah, it's easy. It's just easy. It's
Right.
that blanket therapy.
And so, for those who don't know, CBT is like its most famous representation is the CBT triangle, which connects your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors. And the person's right there in the middle. And the idea is that if you can change the way that you think about something, you can change the way that you feel about something, and then you'll change the way that you respond. And the responsibility is entirely on the individual, which can be helpful. And I certainly recommend people
But
to
it has to be your
understand
choice.
the connections between those things. There's a lot of wonderful things in CBT. I'm not going to
No, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, this is my field of work, so I'm not going to start hating on things.
No.
But
No. I like CBT.
yeah, I mean, those of us who have been through therapy.
But remember, one size does not fit all.
And as a social worker, we really emphasize person and environment. And that's what I really appreciate about this article is that they said, I'm going to quote this article, they said, when children are removed from their homes and their communities, they're also removed from the very source that can exert the strongest influence on them. Even if behavior change occurs, it is highly unlikely to generalize to children's environments when they complete the program. Modification of behavior is far more apt to occur if children and families are treated where they live and where they have a daily opportunity to engage in practicing more adaptive ways of relating.
I'm just saying.
And every article I've read talked about if you have parental engagement and the people around you are participating, that's how you get sustainable change, not putting all the responsibility on a child whose brain is still developing. And
a lot of us, our brains were broken.
Well, I mean, that's when you get into like developmental age, so, which is, I could go on and on, but yeah, your brain's developing and it's still developing in ways that are delayed due to trauma. So, yeah, I'll just kind of skim through, but this one's good.
Okay, I need a good one. A knee slapper.
Yeah, okay. My eye is twitching. I'm so excited. I don't know why I keep doing that. I think I'm dehydrated.
Drink. Where's your water?
Here it is.
Let's take a sip. Let's
Drink
prepare.
water. It's really just it's a blippet. A blippet of information.
We love a blippet.
But, okay, so like I mentioned before,
yes,
a lot of these programs that are the troubled teen industry only offered anecdotal and testimonial claims. There was no research to back up what they were saying they could do.
You know, tomato, tomato.
So how did we get to a place like Wellspring or Camp Shane or Camp Pocono Trails? How did we get to these places?
Tell me everything.
Wellspringy than anything, where you are centered on like a tough love approach. The tough love approach is quite literally, that's what it was called, was first used in treatment facilities to treat heroin addiction within the program Synanon. Do you know what Synanon is?
No.
It's the first, well, not the first, it is a cult. It's one, look it up right now. I want you to look up Synanon.
I love a cult. I really do. Jim Jones me, baby.
Yeah, so
actually don't. I don't want to go
I didn't
like
want to get
that.
too deep into the culty stuff because
What's
it's
it called?
just
Synanon?
Synanon.
How do you spell cinnamon? Synanon.
S-Y-N.
S-Y-N.
A-N-O-N.
Synanon cult. Wait, so, okay. Hold up. Wait a minute. Wellspring is a part.
No.
Oh, sweet.
No.
But like they use the
troubled-
tough love approach.
The troubled teen industry as a whole. These, so the article just kind of gave me a breakdown, like how did the trouble, gonna start that one again.
Habla.
This article gave me a breakdown of how the troubled teen industry became.
Okay.
And so we were kind of parting from one-on-one therapy. We were experiencing more of an uptick in mental health crises among youth.
Rolling Stone did an article on them. Interesting.
And so this particular woman, Wanda K. Moore, as a PhD, she wrote this article. She was able to trace back the origins of these programs that used, quote, a military-style environment and characteristically emphasized discipline and physical conditioning, end quote. These styles of residential treatment programs were derived from the original tough love treatment program, which was Synanon, which was a cult.
So we are so Wellspring. At Wellspring, we're the daughter of a cult. But we're way worse.
Yeah, do you want to read this quote right here? I'll give you a chance to read.
What did we say last time? No fatties, all baddies. But also, we baddie fatties. Okay. For children who are sent to one of their facilities, life is closer to prison than school. With constant surveillance by staff and their peers, humiliation, forced work, solitary confinement, denial of nutrition, extended isolation and restraint, sleep deprivation, and other aversive interventions. Lawsuits by former consumers and their parents describe conditions and actions by staff which read like cases of child abuse. Yeah, for sure. It's funny because my roommate yesterday, I texted her and I said, "What's up, Bunky?" And she just laughed. She was like, "Ha, Bunky." It did feel. It was prisony, absolutely.
Yeah.
Best way to describe it.
I mean,
there were fences around everything.
And any kind of like abusive relationship that you look at where they're cutting off contact to people, where they're rationing
Isolated.
your human needs. Yeah, that's considered abusive. And unfortunately, a lot of the kids that were placed in these environments were considered deserving of those types of treatments because they were quote unquote bad, but they weren't trauma informed. That was one of the things back in even 2009 that this particular woman was saying was really needed, is that these places were not trauma informed. And
so this came out like the year I graduated high school. So this was like right after I went.
Yeah. And one thing that I appreciated that she talked about was just, children's rights versus parental rights, and how children don't have a right to consent to these services, but
you're just put there.
Regardless of parental consent, a child's buy-in is what creates results. And obviously, like I said, an individualized approach is far more effective than a one-size-fits-all. But if you have a child who is, like you said, at Camp Coconut Trails, that is feeling attacked and neglected, and they aren't interested in participating, you're not going to get anything out of it.
No.
Compliance does not equal engagement.
No. Because, then you're just biding your time. It's like, it is another prison-y thing, right? We're just in there, and we accept what was going on. At some point during school, I just kind of had to accept what was going on, which sucked.
Yeah.
And then I just had to get through my days as best as I could, whether that meant skipping breakfast because I didn't want to wake up and do the drills, and then being hungry till we got our first snack, then whatever. But you had to just do for yourself. You had to be comfortable being, the bad kid, the kid that doesn't do much, the kid that really just wants to be by themselves, or you have to be the go-getter. There's really no in between.
Yeah. So, I mean, these are kind of the key points that I wanted to make. If anything pops back up from what I was reading, that, from what you have to share, because I know you had some really interesting stuff that you wanted to talk about.
The first thing I read I don't read.
I know.
Unless it's Sarah J. Maas.
I take all the reading and she takes all of the videos, which I just decided, but I think you appreciate.
I do, because if I'm going to read, it better be smutty and it better be not real.
I love an academic article.
Yeah, I don't. I love to watch things.
Though, admittedly, I don't always read them all the way through unless I'm, really excited.
I feel like I've been really excited about what's going on with this whole thing, which I didn't think I was going to be, but here we are. Okay, so I watched a Vice News segment on the Troubled Teen program, and what really struck me first was they talked about the academic side of the school, and they said that school is basically you go to a room and you do independent study. That's truly all it was. I think I had a tutor at one point, but generally they just gave you a stack of books and you were left to your own devices. And then I took my SATs there off campus.
I would do horribly under those conditions.
I did horribly. I don't know.
Redirecting me constantly.
I honestly don't know how I graduated, but I graduated early. So by the time I got back to St. Louis, I was able to do theater and then just walk with the class.
There's no distractions though, so
But I also I don't feel like I learned anything. But
You
feel
sure don't
that.
act like it.
I don't, because I didn't. I don't know, like, what
No, you
were...
do know things, but you're really brilliant about things that interest you.
Oh, yeah, and
I
if
can
it
tell
don't
you
interest me, then I'm just like,
anything about like history or
British history.
but
Those people are crazy.
anyway,
I love crazy.
anything else is like just wind
whatever.
in there between those ears.
Tumbleweeds.
Yep, it's just Blippy inside my brain.
Um, so, something else that stuck out to me is they talked to a former staffer of this school, which was called Cross Creek, and this one wasn't like it wasn't like a fat school.
Sure.
It was like just a bad kid school.
Behavioral school.
Yeah. And a lot of these people were like forcibly taken and stuff like that, and parents felt like they were duped. But one of the former staffers said he found the job in the paper for a counselor position at a youth detention center. It required no experience, and it paid $8 to $10 an hour. You didn't have to have experience with children whatsoever. He says when he quit, he felt the facility did more harm than good. Administrators deny the abuse, which don't they all, obviously. It said 1,000 kids cycled through the troubled teen industry per year.
1,000.
1,000, and it's still going. And when Paris Hilton came out with her allegation stories, which
From Provo.
From Provo, I still haven't watched all of that, but like, girl, I get it. Whew, girl, I get it.
And like,
I was like, I always knew you and me had something in common.
I've seen bits and pieces of her interviews about it, and just that, she...
What a sweet little angel, that woman.
Yeah, she was behaving in ways that, in the work that I do, we would call it connection seeking, but before, it used to be like attention seeking.
Yeah.
And really, where there are gaps in people's lives, they will create behaviors that get their needs met. And so she was out there, like, it sounds like her parents didn't pay attention to her, and she was like, pay attention to me.
She's like, shake that.
They sent her away.
She was living out there, but really she was freaking the fuck out.
One of my favorite tidbits of information, though, that I've heard about her and Provo and all that is that she went to Provo before she did the Simple Life. And so on the Simple Life, she's acting like she's never done manual labor, but the whole shtick of Provo was that, you were out in the wilderness doing manual labor. And so her classmates would be like, we turned on VH1 or whatever, and you're over there like, I don't know how to drive a car. I don't know how to scoop poop. I don't know how to do anything. And they're like, we were just like,
do you remember
manure.
What just happened?
Yeah. I mean, so.
Well, and that's kind of like the thing, right? Is they scare you into not talking about a lot of stuff. And so I've realized during this whole like researching thing, there are a lot of gaps in my memory. But I get little bits and pieces. So like, but if she went straight from Provo to the Simple Life, it makes sense why that poor girl's brain was switched off. Like just full-blown survival mode.
Character where she started talking.
Yeah, that's why she has that baby voice, which, girl, bring that smoky voice out. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. But during that whole thing where she, was coming out and talking about Provo, Senator Mike McKell, who is like kind of putting more restrictions on these programs like the troubled teen industry, when asked if he would put his own kids in these facilities, he said no. But when asked why he doesn't shut them down, he said, well, it's kind of like a multi-prong, like a and then they were like, but you have kids, do you want...
$multi-million-dollar industry is what he's trying to say.
Bingo. An elephant loves a dollar, but so does a donkey, so whatever.
Oh, I was like, what? You're talking about the political parties. I was like, what?
Yeah, we all have a fucking dollar, and it's our dollars you love. Well, I digress. So the next bit is that there was this mom on this Vice thing, and she was telling everybody about she was telling how she dropped her kid off and whatever. She felt desperate to help him, and they get suckered into the dream that it can help, when in reality they're being manipulated and their kids are taken and abused. And like this kid was saying that his mom apologizes to him all the time now, and mom apologizes to me all the time, and like, I don't blame you, girl, you were just doing the best you... the parents are just doing the best they can, right? They get sold on this dream that their kid could get better, and they want their kids to be, all you want is your kids to be happy, right? You drop them off and you're like, everything's gonna be fine, and then you leave, and that's when the reality starts, right? Because now the people who are paying are leaving, and now you've got your little victim here, and now you can just start doing what you need to do with them in order to make them better, to send them home.
But like the industry, like in particular, Wellspring was run by an investment banker. $6.5 million was the money that he got for this program. You know, you talk about David Nettenberg, who ended up, and I made this mistake on our last, it wasn't $16 million. I think it was $6 million that he got for that camp.
We added a little 10 for spice.
Yeah.
It was an accident.
And so these are really profitable industries. And if you're going to make a profit, and everybody that started these places, they're for-profit entities.
Correct.
If you're going to make a profit, you're not going to be paying qualified professionals. You are going to be using teenagers. You're going to be outsourcing your labor, and they're not going to be qualified to handle children with extreme emotional needs. And so you and me and everybody else that went through these systems were placed with we were dysregulated, and we were being placed with, you know, people who didn't
other dysregulated people too, as well, and different types of dysregulation. Like, there were a few people in our group chat who like said to the whole group, "Sorry if I was a little bit of a biatch. I was struggling," and we're all like, "Oh,
same,
all good."
Even remember it, even though I wasn't there, but.
Although I will do a quick shout out to my dear friend, and I'll say this out in the world. I am still sorry and will forever be sorry that I put rocks in your tent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we have it on camera.
I tell her I'm sorry all the time. We laugh about it.
What kind of rocks were they?
Well, my friend, so Annie and I had gotten to camp around the same time. Or school, and we went to, the first thing we did is we all got shuttled to Ventura Beach, where we went on a camp excursion. And I don't like camping, and neither does Annie. And Jewel was she was like the crown jewel of Wellspring at the time. She was everybody's success story. Everybody wanted to be Jewel. She was she's so cool, and I'm so lucky that, like, you know, we're still friends now, and we've reconnected and everything. But Annie and I decided that we were just dysregulated little crazy kids that just got to this thing, and we decided that we were going to put rocks in her tent. So when she went in there to lay down, there was like dirt and rocks in her tent. But now we LOL about it all day long.
Whatever you could do to make fun,
Whatever you could do to make fun.
I used to stand outside your door and pretend to be the girl from The Ring.
Yeah.
And that was really upsetting to you, but it was a great time for me, so.
Exactly.
You know,
what were we talking about?
Are terrible. Rocks and tents.
Dysregulated children all coming together and living together.
Go back to your notes.
Yeah, dysregulation. Station. That was kind of the end of that.
You were talking about the Vice video.
Yeah, the Vice video. That's really... there's also no federal oversight in any of these facilities, which I found very interesting because in... I think it was in Heavyweights, when the counselors are trying to overthrow Tony, they were like, so the government needs to know that this is not good. And guess what? The government knows, and they don't care.
100%. No. In my article that I was reading about, they talked about how regulations vary from state to state, so children are just not protected.
Absolutely.
And if you get down to it, children in general in the United States do not have a lot of autonomy. So,
no.
But they chose specific areas where things were loosey-goosey.
Yep, exactly. And that's like all I got on that, the Cross Creek.
You know what's interesting too is I think I
watched more things.
I
have lots. No.
I can't remember. I don't think it was Wellspring, but they were just talking about the troubled teen industry as a whole and the lawsuits that did come up, because in this particular article they talked about the number of deaths that happen on campgrounds for various residential programs, not necessarily Wellspring, but within the industry, and how often, similar to Camp Shane, owners would get sued, and then the government or, the judge or whoever would come back and be like, well, you guys are doing a public service, so we're going to give you very minimal. We're going to give you a slap on the wrist.
Clearing the cows out of the field, yo.
Children were dying.
The government loves it when you're not fat.
Yeah.
They
well,
really love it.
the government
Which brings me to a quote.
loves children until they're
Where
here
it's-
on Earth, and then
And yeah, so do you want me to go into the next thing that I...
yes.
Okay, so
I
the next thing
do.
I watched was short, but very informative.
Just like me.
Yeah,
I am short and very informative.
absolutely.
Oh, my eyes twitching.
Oh, God.
I don't know what to do about that.
Fix it.
I can't.
Well, then shut up about it.
Okay.
Please. No, I mean, tell me how you're
You see
feeling.
that?
Which eye is it?
No,
Maybe it's
not.
the pink eye.
Okay. Anyway, onward.
Okay, so the next thing I watched was an ABC News segment on Wellspring Academy, but it was at Wellspring, North Carolina.
Yes.
And this was in 2013. This was in 2013.
Okay.
So it follows a couple of the students. One's name was Jenna, and she was, I believe, 13 years old when she got to the school. And her first day was really tough, and it pushed her to her mental breaking point. She was crying. Her whole family, she said all of her siblings were smaller, and like her parents were like we feel like this is going to be good for her. This is the only chance we have. They were telling her that like if she gained more weight, she was going to die. They were like scaring her. And they were
The evidence suggests that, and because I listen to Maintenance Phase a lot, and bodies vary in size, and the fear-mongering around weight as a number and weight in general is 100% fat phobia, and negative health outcomes can be a result of a lot of different things, and so poor children are unfortunately being on the receiving end of a lot of just misinformation.
and it's and then you get scared.
Terrified. Yeah.
And it's a lot of fear tactics that they used on us, which makes sense because that's the way they control people. So
To make the money.
in another segment, other than the ABC News one, when Jenna was telling the trainers that she was nauseous and water wasn't helping her, the trainer says mind over matter, and was holding her hands above her head. And then in another video I watched next, which was also on school in North Carolina, this is the one that I was telling you that I really wanted to tell you, and I have a video actually.
Okay, yeah.
Let's just make sure it loads. Video killed the radio star.
Oh.
This is Emily, a teenager who ended up at Wellspring, and she was 11 years old, and she said, if you're too big for this world, people notice. And it made me so sad, but this is what her parents said to her, or said about her.
I'm going to throw up.
Yeah, this is going to hit you. This is going to hit you in the dick. So her mom says you can't lock the fridge or the pantry.
Wait a second.
Yes, you can.
Wait a second. Hold your horses. I want
We
you
know
to read
on
this.
good authority that you can.
Thank you. Okay. So the first article that I read about the camper who went to Camp Shane and then Wellspring. Lexi. Okay, another student. So I mentioned to you this particular girl had followed our trajectory, or your trajectory.
Yeah.
And I wanted you to read, thank you for reminding me this. I want you to read this section. And
Miss Worth also locks up junk food in a kitchen cabinet, and only she has the key. Lexi said she found that helpful. Oh my God.
that was a gulp.
Well, fun fact, one of our parents, when we were young, locked our refrigerator and our pantry. There were chains around the pantry doors, and he had his, our dad. And that is something that I can't even begin to describe, like what that does to your brain.
Yeah. Well, there was...
So, Emily, mama liar. You can lock
Yeah.
them up.
Yeah, I mean, we had somebody come in to modify our refrigerator so that it could be locked up.
Yeah,
It was,
drilled a hole through the Viking refrigerator, so with the big old padlock to go up top.
yeah. So, and we did not find that helpful. Lexi may
I
have
also
found it
didn't find
helpful.
it
I did not find it
funny.
helpful. I was hungry.
Yeah. Well, and then
But I did
our
not want what was in the refrigerator. It was dead quails
yeah, and
and expired.
macaroni and cheese.
Keep reading.
Okay. Shit. Most important for Lexi, nothing tastes as great as thin feels. I should get that tattooed on my ass. I heard that so many times in my
Which
life.
is not true.
It's
Have you had
not.
a sandwich from Up Late?
With a donut.
I
Donut,
haven't had that.
egg, cheese, special sauce, blackberry jam. Mm-hmm. You heard me. In a parking lot on a crisp summer evening. I'm hungry.
Are you?
Yeah. No, well, thinking about it.
Yeah, I
Makes
remember
me-
that being kind of the sign of the times, the saying of the times was nothing tastes as good as thin feels.
A moment on
And
the
let me
hips,
tell you-
or a moment on the lips, and a lifetime on the hips was another one that I always found to be whimsical and fun.
Yeah, remember just not that long ago when I was a baby bald eagle, and thank goodness I learned that, because I think it's fair to say you and I are still to this day impacted by diet culture. It's hard, especially when you become indoctrinated into something, to pull yourself out, and when it is so prevalent, in everyday society.
I've gained 30 pounds this year, and I'm struggling a little bit about it, but also it's gonna be okay.
I'm trying to speak to my inner child the way that she needed to be spoken to, because it wasn't long ago that I was losing my hair, and I broke my ankle and realized, okay, I really need to eat to regain strength. And I did not realize how little I was eating, but I'd become so you know, there was keto that was really popular, so I was afraid of bread for a hot second. Right now I feel like I'm in a good spot, and certainly my body changes regardless of what I do. And so it's right now I think you and I are doing a lot of healing around some of the ways that food and movement were used as
Against
punishment.
us.
In our youth, and just trying to be more intuitive and gentle with ourselves. But, we watched a video of the hill the other day.
So Andrea showed me, because we did talk about the hill last time at Camp Shane, which was the hill that the food was at the bottom of.
And it should be noted that Camp Shane is located in the Catskill Mountains. So it is not just a hill, but it is
It is
the
a
side of the
mountain. It's a cliff.
that you have to climb up and down to get food. And there was a video.
It's the cliff that Mufasa fell off when Scar pushed him.
I think so, yes. We'll look it up.
It was based on it.
So if you go on to Camp Shane's official YouTube, you can see campers being taunted as they struggle to try
Called
and get
fatties.
up the hill.
All kinds of shit.
But I don't remember necessarily why I was making that point.
I mean, it did almost make me cry, because it's just something about seeing those kids and seeing how incredibly steep it was and how long it was. I mean, it was steep and long.
Yeah, you kind of wonder if you remember things correctly,
But then you look at it and you're like,
I
no.
remember people falling asleep, or not falling asleep, but laying down on the side of it to take a break.
Yes, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about the people who would kind of veer off to the side, and or people who would hold on to because there was the fence there, the red fence, and they would pull themselves up, and then they would get yelled at for pulling themselves
It's
up.
unusual punishment, and I'm a big fan of harm reduction, which is what an intervention that's mostly described for drugs and alcoholism, or motivational interviewing. These are two interventions that are used for drugs and alcoholism. And I'm like, why are we not using that for this? Because it's a lot slower and a lot more meeting people where they're at, as opposed to torture. But
That's basically what it
digress.
is. Yeah, you're dropped off and then you're tortured.
I'm sorry, if I can barely I was a terrible gym student and I could not run a mile.
No.
You're gonna make me run up a hill after eating? I can't even do that now, and I've been working out. I've been working on my fitness.
Working on my fitness. She's my
I
witness.
probably could run up a hill, but my ankle says otherwise.
So, also in the ABC News segment, that Jenna girl, she called herself a fat blob. They said, how do you feel about yourself? She said, I feel like I'm a fat blob. And I get it, girl.
Oh, thank you. The point that I was going to make is that our internal monologue, that kind of language that this girl is using, we realized when we were watching that video of the hill, is that a lot of our internal monologue is
something that we heard outside our bodies.
right. Like we've internalized the language, and
because the counselors were like, look at that fatty down there. He'll never make it up the hill. And I'm like, that makes sense. I hear you in my head,
Yeah.
Just so you know, you're still in there.
Yeah, I know. It's really actually quite sad.
It's mad.
So we're trying to be nicer to ourselves as kind of a practice right now.
And it's hard. It's hard to be nice to yourself. Like the other day when I told you, I said I broke down in tears because my head was so loud in there.
Yeah.
And it was just all mean stuff.
And I'm sure a lot of people can relate if you've seen Bruce Almighty, the scene where he's getting all of the prayers downloaded to his brain.
Yeah. And he just can't, he keeps walking around town going,
yeah.
Like,
that's how we feel when our brains are
mean to us. Yeah. Mean to us. Okay, so kids at Wellspring, North Carolina were usually between the ages of 11 and 18, which brought up a memory. A lot of us who ended up bunking together were of varying ages, and they didn't have a lot of, like, the little kids sometimes ended up in rooms with, like, 16-year-olds, and so they were, like, the age disparities were a little weird to me because, like, you didn't have a ton and it was so small group of people in general.
Yeah, developmentally, those are very different places to be.
Absolutely, which it just all makes sense because I remember the little kids or the younger kids would come in and all of a sudden, like, people would kind of swarm around them like sharks because, they're cute, but you can also teach them to do things that they're not supposed to do.
Oh, see, I had a very different initial reaction. I'm like, look, it's a cute little kid. And they're like, no, there's my minion.
Basically, yeah. You're like, I'm going to use you.
I can't get my arm right.
I know. I'm like, I keep going like this. Okay. So when you go to Wellspring Academies, you're cut off from your family completely.
I know.
You get 2 10-minute phone calls per week if you're good, because I didn't always get those 2 10-minute phone calls. And when I was there, we were taken to a back room with those, those desks that had the dividers that you would do for testing, and there was a phone right there, and they would patch you through, and they would listen on the other end. You were never alone. You were never alone. A goal of the school is also to incorporate 0 grams of fat a day. That is what you're supposed to do. I have a note that says egg beaters. We didn't eat real eggs. We ate egg beaters, and now I have this. He tried to get them a little bit ago, and I was just, I can't.
Yeah.
You couldn't use a TV outside the gym.
I remember this. I just remember touring the facility.
There were people who we would sit on the exercise equipment sometimes and just do and we would see a counselor pass, and we would work out all of a sudden, and then we would kind of lean back
on the equipment, and then when
like a normal human being.
Yeah. Turn it on.
No food allowed outside the dining hall. There were weekly weigh-ins, and the weekly weigh-ins are probably one of the most anxiety-inducing things because it's in that morning, which I think usually it was Monday, there would just be like everybody would be freaking out because it was right when you woke up, and I can't remember if it was before the activity or after, but it was like your whole existence revolves around the number on that scale going down. And if it doesn't, for any reason whatsoever...
Imagine you are about to have your period. Imagine you haven't taken a shit. Imagine you are just a
Imagine you're human.
And your body fluctuates.
Imagine.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know that from Camp Shane and Camp Pocono Trails. And, one of the scenes that I forgot to reference that felt very accurate, though, in heavyweights was when they weigh them publicly and they go, congratulations, you're the fattest kid in camp. Yeah, and truly, if you gained weight, which happened,
you were chastised.
Yep,
you were chastised for it.
Yeah.
You were because we were a school and a camp of misfits, right? But you were like the misfittiest of them all. Congrats. I did write down that they did mostly talk therapy.
Which, okay, I am pleased that they brought in some sort of therapeutic intervention.
I'm going to tell you what.
Tell me.
My fucking BC, my behavioral coach, his name was Bob, and he was like literally the crypt keeper. And he freaked me out, and I found no help from him, no warmth, no kindness. But anytime I had an issue, they'd go talk to Bob. I don't want to fucking talk to Bob. He smells like cigarettes, black coffee, and he has a snaggle tooth, and he looks like he just popped out of the grave. And he had no connection. He was stick thin. He looked like he climbed rocks in the wilderness for his job.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean.
So it was the bottom of the barrel that we received because that's the cheapest
Yeah.
you could get.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just like spray paint.
Sorry, Bob, but also like whatever, you know.
I mean, you can't like spray paint a piece of shit gold and call it gold if you're not doing good therapeutic intervention. It's just the same as doing nothing at all.
I just pictured Bob in my head.
It also makes, people averse to therapy if you're going to see somebody who's phoning it in and is not really connected to the work that they're doing.
They did not
going to get good quality service. I mean, the most important thing, and if anybody watching or listening to this is in therapy and you're not vibing with your therapist, that's the most important thing.
It's like dating. You don't have to stay in a relationship you don't like.
Exactly.
Make it work for you.
Mm-hmm. But you didn't have a choice here. It was just you and Bob.
It was just me and fucking Bob, dude. So,
the raisin capital of the world.
I wrote down SMJs, which is self-monitoring journals, which I'm pretty sure I can find mine. I'm going to try to find mine before we talk to everybody. And something that stuck out to me about this ABC News thing was they said weight loss programs have a 90% failure rate. But this one cost $50,000 per year in tuition, and that was in 2013.
Jeez. Yeah.
So you're paying $50,000
for something that doesn't work. You're buying a car that's a lemon
that has no engine,
and that's probably gonna spark and hit you in the eyeball and cause like lifetime of damage.
Rolling on 3 donuts and a tractor wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy.
Rickety bridge.
How does that?
The eclipse season.
How's that ROI for you looking now? Not great.
Nope.
Not great. And I don't know a lot about finance, but that sounds like a not so sound investment to me.
I don't know about finance either.
I watched one more thing, and it was a longer one, which brought back a lot. So I don't know if you want to like dive into something else, or do you want me to just keep going?
A lot of this is, it's just kind of setting you up for, and there's like tidbits of information, but I kind of want to know what you got going on.
Oh my God, everything. Susan Borgman, what a bitch.
Okay.
Literally. And I forgot to write down her exact, but she was one of the administrators. I think she was a clinical.
Hoping you were going to say her exact big 3, and I was like, tell me her zodiac sign.
Dude, I wish I knew. Susan Borgman, what are you? Because, so she was I think the clinical administrator at the school. So she set up the programs and stuff like that.
She's the secretary. She's the gal that you call when you're trying to get your shit in order. She
was never around. She was one of the top people that kind of ran the program.
Oh, program director.
Yeah, with Daniel Kirsch.
She's behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. She's running things.
Yeah.
She's
she shows up sometimes.
Harry Potter, the principal.
The principal. Yeah, she's like Umbridge. She's just, and she really, I think, she's fat phobic.
And the whole industry is fat phobic.
She is.
Even though they claim to be.
So the first kid who got took place in 2012. It's called Too Fat for 15 Fighting Back. Susan Borgman is there. Daniel Kirsch is there. They're the people that run the program. And one of the kids got dropped off, and his name is Scotty. And Scotty's parents say they both got the lap band, and the more weight they lose, the more depressed Scotty becomes. So they sent him to Wellspring. None of the admins or trainers really ever had any significant weight problems in their life. And a parent took out $40,000. Oh no, a parent took out 401k money to send their 510-pound daughter to Wellspring at a cost of $28,000. And this poor kid, she was she was a big girl. But she was getting bullied, and there were things that she couldn't do, which brings me to...
And I just want to say, and we might redact, exact weight numbers.
Absolutely.
Because I think, especially, this is 2013? Mm-hmm. And all the articles that I read were from, early 2000s, but people can live healthy lives at most any weight. And,
Yeah.
like I said, it's just, it's shocking.
Well, what I was going to say is she got bullied.
Right. So it's like the problem is the society and the culture.
Well, they had this measuring tape, and I'm gonna say something. If you're running a school for fat kids, you get a longer measuring tape because they were trying to measure her, and the thing wouldn't go around, and she was mortified. And one of the camp counselors or the school, counselors was like, I would have been mortified.
That's just, well, and when you're being run by these white men that have never.
And it was a white man doing it, and he needed to ask for an extender, and this poor girl. I mean, it was not great, but this is what her story really intrigued me because of the fact that she was, one of the heavier students that they had. So she had some restrictions, and she also had like a bunch of surgeries on her legs, so she had like some mobility issues. But this brought me to this tidbit of information.
This blippit?
This blippit of
Tell me more,
information.
Blippy.
Wellspring, North Carolina has a hill.
Was it designed after the hill?
I'm pretty sure. Susan Borgman says the hill is another great way for kids to connect the dots. You climb the hill, you get to eat.
Eating is a human need.
Thank you.
Which is like one of these challenging things when it comes to having your maladaptive coping skill being something that is food related. It is a human need. And yes, there are times when people are, overeating to self-soothe or undereating to have control or whatever the behavior might be. But food is a human right. And the fact that you're like saying that it is a reward and you're putting it at, the end of a hill.
Well, they were trying
neural
to
pathways that create
a hill in our brains. So they have a hill, and it looked bigger than the Shane Hill.
bigger, badder,
scarier. Hot Wheels. I mean, I was just, I'm not impressed with your hills. After that, I wrote, Susan Borgman is a snide little bitch.
I want to see this woman. Is she on the internet?
Yeah, dude.
I want to see what she looks
An
like.
admin said that the hill does not get any easier, whether you've walked it 1 or 100 times. And that was from an admin who was of healthy weight, right? Is that her?
Of Wellspring Academy. Ew, she looks like.
She looked better before. Maybe it was oopsie.
Maybe it's all that hill walking.
Maybe it's all that hill walking, Suze. Okay, so the admin said that the hill doesn't get any easier whether you've walked it once or 100 times. That's coming from somebody who's at the healthy weight, like I said. This girl who was at, one of the bigger campers they'd seen who had the physical issues, she would get driven up the hill.
Good.
And she said that she would watch people walk up the hill and she would feel really, really sad for them because she had to walk down the hill once and she fell because of how steep it was.
Yeah.
And these kids, they say it's like the worst part of their day is walking up that hill, and it is. I don't know. I found that to be that actually, because Cody had his AirPods in when I heard that, and I screamed and paused it, and I circled it. I said they have a hill.
It's cruel and unusual punishment. It creates, once again, a deprivation mentality. You are dangling food like a carrot, and then when you get home, where food is readily accessible,
You eat that shit because you don't know when it's going to get taken away again.
100%. It is, the design of these programs are so twisted. And they don't result in long-term success.
No, they do not. They just...
success is determined on what? If you are skinny, which I think I want...
When I was at my skinniest, I was at my worst.
You mentioned, and we've tossed around this idea many times, there would be such a value in having a space for kids of varying abilities and sizes to feel safe and at a camp where they can learn about, interoception, what feels good.
These aren't those places.
No, these places are creating more dysregulation long term. So it's just really disappointing that the places that parents, in some cases who are well-intentioned, are sending their kids there to get help, and they're coming out more fucked up
Mm-hmm.
than when they went in.
Oh yeah, and like from our group chat, like I didn't realize how many like illicit activities were kind of going on behind the scenes. Cause why didn't y'all want to invite me? I mean, I
Oh, I
get
thought you
it.
meant with like, the higher ups. No.
Well, that too, but like the students were like, everybody was getting a little wild. I did sneak in a cell phone one year, and I remember that I took the light. There's those the covers to the light switches. So I put the cell phone like under a titty, my old titties.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
Yeah, you could
They
store
were
a lot under there.
long. You could store lots of snacks and things under a titty. So I put it under a titty, right? And I get home. I got to school, and I unscrewed the little light switch. And I can't remember how I unscrewed it. Probably like a makeup brush or something. And I hollowed it out, and I took the battery out of the phone. I just shoved the phone in the crevice and then put it right back. So like we had a phone for a hot minute. I was able to somehow get the internet
Apparently
too.
Orange is the New Black.
Dude, anything you could. And apparently, I mean, I don't know. We're gonna talk to some people and maybe get some little stories and snippets here. But apparently there were some poppin' things going on, and everybody's saying, well, while we look back on them and they're not as like scandalous as you would think now. As kids, it was people were getting into they were, as Jewel said, things got wild.
Well,
Got
for
wild
example,
at
and
Wellspring.
here's where it is as poppin' as you think, because the risk is huge. And there was this Dateline NBC article that I read that followed Johnny, and they were saying 5 days after he got smoking, or 5 days after he got caught smoking, Johnny was expelled and shipped off to Texas at an even tougher place, a wilderness intervention program run by the Aspen Education Group.
I remember kids
And
missing.
there was a big hard and fast rule at Wellspring, no dating, and he was dating, so I know that probably went down.
Everybody was dating, honey.
And one thing that I think was interesting too is they were talking about that, like he had very particular behaviors around germs. He was showering 3 times a day, and now they're placing him in an environment where he's not allowed to shower but once a week, and so that's creating dysregulation in him and not providing therapeutic intervention for what possibly could be some sort of obsessive compulsive disorder.
Jeez, dude. There were people who were really. I remember there was one kid that we went to school with, and he was the smelly kid, but he just never showered. And now that I look back on it, I'm like, you had some dysregulation going on as well.
Yeah.
And he would just marinate in his stanky clothes, and nobody wanted to be around him.
Nothing.
It's just a stinky fat boy.
Nothing in these programs are trauma informed, and so they are one size fits all, and we know that is not.
It don't work.
It's not successful in
No.
creating what I would hope to just be healthy mentally, kids. Not like healthy is so subjective, and as long as you're feeling okay in your body and in your mind, that's healthy. It's not about a number. It's not about a number on a tape measure or a scale
Or a pedometer.
It's not.
Or your SMJ.
It's not about your BMI. It is how you feel. And so I'm just really disappointed that these places that claim to be therapeutic are creating negative outcomes. And
oh yeah, we all have problems now, and
Yeah.
everybody's like said that they've gained and lost either hundreds of pounds ever since, and like people are starting to now process in adulthood that Wellspring led to a lot of our issues. And like, let me just kind of quickly reference, I'm not going to directly quote anybody, but
And one thing from this article,
some things from our group chat that stood out to me that made me either LOL or go, Jesus Christ.
one thing that I think is really interesting about like the fact that you have reached out to your friends and there's been such a overwhelming response is this article mentioned that they weren't, the students weren't necessarily worried about taking the behaviors back home. Some people were, but they were really more worried about leaving their support group. And I marked that, and I wrote, I think, too, what's the most fearful thing is returning to the world, which is so deeply fat phobic. And so you go to a community where that is available to you as you are. I mean, like we said, there are, tiers and cliques in fat camp and fat school. But
And
at the
this
end of the
place
day-
even structured
Yeah.
tiers
Yeah.
for you to to go to. So, like, there were the kids that were really doing the program well, who ended up being boulders and getting cell phone access and stuff like that, and special snacks and, like, things that would go on. And then I never made it past level 1 because I'm too good for a program like that.
Yeah, you're a troublemaker.
Don't stick me in a box. Put me in a cage. But some of these things that stuck out to me in our group chat, one of my friends said, "My God, it's almost like war flashbacks reading all of this and seeing everybody's names again." Somebody else said, AOS was a shit show. I remember going to the camp and thinking the school was so cool and wanting to go there. Then I got there and couldn't leave fast enough. Somebody else called it. I mean, people just had so many things to say.
And we're gonna figure out. It might not. This is gonna be an ongoing series or whatever. As
Absolutely.
We talk to people.
A disgusting, poorly run scam of a place filled with incompetent, unqualified people. A direct quote from somebody who went to school there for quite some time.
I think we're going to be doing a lot of interesting kind of storytelling in the coming episodes. Yes. We're going to chat with people who had different lived experiences.
From all over the place and all different ages, too.
Yeah, I'd be curious. We have a couple of people that, went to Fat Camp that we could reach out to, but right now we're really thinking about the people that were at Wellspring because you have good relationships with these people.
And some of them went to Camp Shane as well, because my friend told me this today, and I took note of it.
The only people...
Camp Ojai, Camp Pocono, and Camp Shane are all under one umbrella of camps called New Image Camps. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of people who went to Shane, Ojai, or Pocono ended up going into the Wellspring system. Mm-hmm. And now, to this day, people are still having problems navigating their relationships with their bodies and with food because we have been broken down so far that it's taken years to like at least start building ourselves back up. And some people did have a better experience, but they also were very they're very aware of the fact that wasn't for everybody. And they do know that things weren't always good.
No, and I think, what, this is a cultural problem. Mm-hmm. Fat phobia is embedded in our culture and has become considered like, it's pushed on us through the medical system and through people in power, presidential fitness tests, even Michelle Obama, and I love the Obamas, but she was really championing like the childhood obesity interventions during the Obama presidency. And so to be placed in an environment that is this pressure cooker of all of these kinds of flawed beliefs and then, push back out into the world that continues to push this stuff on you it's really sad to see because, you and I still, right now, high protein, like there's diet culture goes in waves and it's not gone.
No.
And we try to focus on balance and we try to focus on, like I said, being intuitive, But
sometimes for breakfast, I have French toast and hash brown casserole.
That's what we had for this breakfast this morning, although I had...
I'll add a photo of it right here.
Yeah. Ding.
Thanks, Eat Crow. It was delicious.
Yeah, and we have other things that we can talk about too, various eating disorders and specific diagnoses, and this is just something that we unfortunately did not want to learn a lot about, but is something that we've experienced through fat camps and our own diagnoses. So lots to talk about. Lots of people that we're going to talk to.
I'm so excited because honestly,
of really beautiful people,
beautiful angels,
beautiful stories.
Very appreciative of all these people who are willing to talk. I want to shout out to the group again because I only put 10 people in there, and I was just like, I just maybe want to get some quotables, and a friend of mine jumped in, and now I can't even tell you how many people there are. There's so many people.
Yeah, it's going to take us a minute to figure out how we're going to structure, the continuation of this particular series, the Fat Camp Diaries. But we are going to start chatting with people and giving them an opportunity to share. And if you guys are interested, please listen. We're also going to do some fun stuff too.
We're going to do, some diet food, taste testing.
Yeah, and just, we're going to do a lot of stuff on My Little Men TV because...
We're getting fat and having fun.
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Why not?
Blip
is here.
So what Blippy says goes.
What Blippy says goes.
And Blippy says...
Let's go.
So off we go.
Off we go. Until next time, friends. This is My Little Men TV. Oh!
I gotta look at your elbow. Wait, should we show what we do instead? Blippy's gonna cover it.
Come close.
Okay. This is how we say goodbye. This is how we have mental illness. They have to line up.
We get our nails to... Wait. It's like, that was good.
And then we can leave. So.
Go. Go. Go.
Gotta go.
We have to... I have to leave.
Are they gone?
They
No. Shit. Okay, bye. See you next week. Or the week after. Thanks for listening to this episode of My Little Men TV.
What? Oh, I didn't know we were doing.
All right, 3, 2, 1, action.
Thanks for listening to this episode of My Little Men TV.
Make sure you like and subscribe. Follow our Instagram at My Little Men TV for updates.
And you can listen to us anywhere where you find podcasts.
Wherever.
Anywhere.
Anywhere you want to listen.
YouTube, Instagram, Spotify.
Apple Music.
Anything.
Anything.
Any of them.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
We stopped recording that. Fuck it.